What you are seeing in front of you is a book called Women Are From Bras, Men Are From Penis, a survival guide for bypassing communication and getting even in your relationships. Co-written by Anna Collins and Elliot Sullivan. And this book obviously was written as a parody. I forgive you if you think that it's looks a lot like another book. It actually is a parody of the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the bestseller written by John Gray, 1992. So we have with us today the lead writer, Elliot Sullivan, and he's going to talk to us about things like totally ridiculous programs that he's putting on. His pet, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Harold, as well as many other exciting stories. So we'll be joining him in a moment. Hang on.
Hello? Hi. Is this Peter the Healer?
Yes. No, actually, I'm the audio engineer for the show, Peter the Healer, your celestial broadcaster.
Where is Peter the Healer?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I've been trying for the last 10 minutes trying to reach him, but he's not answering.
Have you tried tuning into 528 Hertz, the love frequency?
No, that's a good idea. I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. Hey, you know what? I think I'm getting some
Radio
Hello? Anybody out there?
DJ e produtor brasileiro Rod Novaes.
Hello, everyone. This is Peter Desmond Kelly, host of Peter the Healer, your celestial broadcaster, the place for great interviews where I ask the questions nobody else does. Elliot Sullivan, who has quite the background, I've got to tell you. He spent 50 years studying Eastern and Western philosophy, meditation, and depth psychology with some of the greatest teachers on the planet. He spent 6 years in India with one of that country's greatest masters, studied and performed stand-up comedy for 50 years with 2 national TV appearances, The Joan London Show and Showtime's Comedy Club Network. Was co-author and head writer of 2 successful parodies, including Women Are From Bras, Men Are From Penis, endorsed by John Gray. I showed a picture of that earlier. And he also studied extensively with Dr. Gene Houston for approximately 100 weekends over a 20-year period. A certified trainer in NLP by NLP founder Richard Bandler, a hypnotherapist certified by world-class instructor Richard Bandler, was an introduction leader for landmark education and trained in the Seminar Leaders Program. To start things off, he went to university, a graduate of the IM School of Healing Arts, president, CEO of an advertising marketing agency for 13 years, president and CEO of a publishing company for 12 years, a bachelor's of arts at Cornell University, theater arts, and a master's at Cornell University, communication arts. So, Elliot, what else is there for you to accomplish?
Well, let's see. I need to grow up, I think. That would be good.
Why?
Yeah, that's right. I was just looking at YouTube videos of the Star Child from 2001. And that seems to be the goal for all of us, to not grow up and remain a star child instead of a serious adult.
Right. Yes. I think that would certainly help a lot of what's going on in the world if we could lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously, that's been your trademark, is lightening up. You've been a stand-up comedy, and of course, you wrote these two successful parodies. And it's such a twist. I mean, anyone who's obviously in our age bracket, or maybe a little bit less or more, will certainly recognize the cover, the famous book, of course, written by John Gray, 1992, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That really turned the whole world upside down. And then you came up with this book. Was it your idea?
Well,
Title?
it was mine and a comedian.
Okay.
We wanted to do a relationship parody. and when we came up with the title, then we decided to write the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My colleague, Anna Collins, very funny, an attractive comedian, also from Florida. Once we came up with the title, we wrote it together. And I actually saw a top lawyer in New York City to make, just in case John Gray sued us.
Mm.
And, as a preempt. And as it turns out, of all the relationship experts we sent the book to, the only one who endorsed it was John Gray.
Mm.
And so he thought it was just hysterical. And I ended up meeting John Gray, and I became a John Gray facilitator. So we became good friends anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was a real blockbuster, his book, and now yours. And you've also got a spin-off, which is Penis and Bras Go on a Date.
Right. That was also a
Okay.
parody of his Mars and Venus on a Date. So we,
Well, that's very good. So, tell us a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing. People are always interested to see how creative people such as yourself get their inspiration, and usually it's from life experience. I wonder if you have anything to say about that.
well, that's interesting, Peter. I haven't thought about it in a while, but I think I can get some clarity on it. When I was growing up, I was a kind of an extra sensitive, highly sensitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had the feeling that people saw me or knew me, the state of being unseen. So to get attention, I don't know whether it was I used humor because I wanted attention, or that was simply the natural outgrowth. I mean, I just loved to laugh because it was liberating, as opposed to suffocating. And I often felt suffocated. And if I could find the humor, I felt more liberated. So that developed through junior high school. In high school, I was the class clown, and I was the senior variety show head. In college, I was in a singing, close harmony singing group. I was the group comedian, but it kind of evolved. Then I went to New York, studied with a vaudeville comedian, developed stand-up comedy, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, and then along the way, you studied with some very well-known people in the empowerment business and in the wellness industry. You're talking about many years with Dr. Jean Houston, who's a well-known person in the field of self-empowerment.
Yeah.
How did you connect with her?
Well, this is very interesting. I attended a talk by her at a with a seminar company called the Learning Annex. This is, decade, at least several decades ago in New
Yeah,
York City.
you don't have to tell everyone how old you are. We already know. Me
Well,
too.
Gene Houston's father was one of the top comedy writers in Hollywood. He wrote comedy for Bob Hope and Jack Benny, and he's responsible for writing the famous Who's on First routine.
Really?
Abbott
For
and
Abbott
Costello.
and Costello. Wow.
Absolutely. So Gene Houston, who in fact has 2 PhDs, was a college professor at Columbia, but who also is an amazing actor, performer, and she can be a stand-up on her own. She loves comedy. And her father always, anytime she got serious, her comedy writing father always threw a joke and broke up the seriousness. Well, at the break of a talk, I told her I was interested in humor and transformation. And without skipping a beat, she said, "I'll help you any way I can." And that blew my mind. Most people, well, why would you want, does that go humor and how could you explain that? Boom, she got it and just was right there for me. So that started a long relationship, which continues today. We're still close friends.
She's almost like a mentor, the way you describe her.
Absolutely. That book, the parody book, I was a little bit, as you can imagine, underconfident about releasing a book with that title. And I would read samples, chapters in the mystery school program that she sponsored for over a weekend. Anyway, the short of it was she kind of gave me the confidence to release it, and it was printed in 6-7 languages. Many countries bought the rights, etc. So she's always been influential.
Yes, and tell us about your time in India. You were there for 6 years?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like 6 half years, half year on, half year off. But I made a contact with one of the greatest masters from that country. He was so great that people haven't heard of him because he was a master at keeping himself below the radar. There were great masters like Sai Baba and other teachers that we've heard of. He made a point of keeping it quiet. He didn't want you to talk about him at all. So I studied with him for really a period of 6 years. And he's just a beautiful person. Beautiful person. I don't know what to say. He was, half the time he walked around like, which is to say he was like in an altered state of consciousness. And then when he was teaching, he would become this like vaudeville comedian. Now he's talking in Indian, but talking in a way that was almost like he was a professional comedian. So he was able to switch from the most loftiest state down to a state where everybody was enjoying his talks and jokes.
Okay.
Make sense?
And what about your time in working with, was it Richard Bandler, the founder of NLP? That's neuro-linguistic programming, for those who may not know.
Richard Bandler was upset. One of the people that Richard Bandler trained was Tony Robbins, among others. Also, there's a stage hypnotist called Paul McKenna, also trained with Richard Bandler. So Richard Bandler was behind the scenes. And everybody started ripping him off and developing, becoming gurus in NLP. But there was an authentic division of his in New Jersey, and I was living in Manhattan. So that's the one I attended, and that was directly sponsored by Richard. And Richard would come many times to many events. And I was certified directly by and trained directly by Richard.
Okay,
yeah.
So
he's quite he himself is quite a character.
So tell me, what did you have any particular vision when you were growing up that you wanted to be a stand-up comedian or a hypnotist or a guru? Because it seems to me that your path has taken you on many curves, and I'm wondering what you had in your mind growing up. Did you have any kind of dreams or any idols that you might have looked up to as a maybe 10-year-old or whatever?
No. Well, it was kind of a dual path. On one hand, I was very interested in spirituality, mysticism, personal growth. I've done, hundreds of personal growth programs, self-development. And on the other, with a famous vaudeville comic. His name was Billy Glason. He was a famous radio comedian, but he never made it to television, so people have probably not heard his name as much as, Bob Hope, Jack Benny, and all those other, Milton Berle, etc. But I did have ambitions of becoming a famous comedian. And when I developed material and started literally getting out there in the trenches, and the trenches in comedy is going to comedy clubs, going to open mic nights, developing material, being seen by agents or bookers, they call them. And when I started going around, I said, the comedians that are performing are terrific. I said, they call them, usually in an act, there are three comedians, an opening act and an MC, then the middle act, and then the closer or the headliner. And I'm saying these headliners are just terrific. They keep the crowd going from start to finish. And do I want to be another headliner? And I could do it, not a problem, but is that what I want to do with my life? I said, well, not really, because I'm also into the transformative aspect of comedy. And I have this intuition that we can grow faster and become more healthy psychologically if not just that we lighten up, but that we see that life is a comedy. Not that we don't just add comedy to our life. We see the comedy of life. And that's where my shift comes in. It's a paradigm shift from life as a job to life as a joy.
So then you're taking your own experiences and your own learning, and you've actually applied a philosophy to a way of transforming your life and others.
Yes.
Interesting.
And right.
How did you come up? I mean, this is what hit me. I still laugh the first time I heard it. Totally ridiculous. How often do people use that phrase? I know it's one of my, I can ask my wife, one of my most common comments about life situations. That's one of the things I say, totally ridiculous. That's a great title. Tell us about that. Totally ridiculous. What's that all about?
Sure. Well, this is an iteration or a 2.0 of the 1.0 of this concept. Originally, I called it radical ridiculousness, because when we look at the news, things aren't ridiculous. They are beyond ridiculous. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. And the fact that these things are being implemented in our politics, in our government, etc. We don't have to go spend the time on that. But from radical ridiculousness, it grew into positively ridiculous, which is actually has the word positive in it. So we're using ridiculous in a positive way. We're seeing one of my lines is, sure, laughter is the best medicine, but it's seriousness that's making us sick. So we are terminally serious. And we're also, our hospitals and our HMOs, of course, you're in Canada, which God bless, in the United States, it's chaos. The amount of money that people pay just for an aspirin, you probably charge, you would like an aspirin? Sure, that'll be $200, I'm only exaggerating a little bit. I've seen some of the bills
Just a
I've done,
little, I think,
and they're
yes.
just, no, but
That's
a
one pill,
doctor's
or do
visit.
you get a bottle for $200?
Well, if you want a bottle, that's an extra. That's an extra 200.
Mm.
400 for the bottle. Just really quickly, Peter, in India, I had a rash on my hand. I went to a doctor who thought it might be tetanus. She said, when's the last time you got a tetanus shot? She gave me a tetanus shot. She gave me this very up to date. I'm in this third world village, and she's handing me this very state of the art skin cream from GlaxoSmithKline, and she charges me for the visit $3. And it just boggles the mind. Whereas, anyway, so let's get back on track here. Where were we?
Well, I mean, you were going in different directions, but I think this thing about totally ridiculous or positive ridiculous
Okay.
was where you left off.
Right. It's almost as if the planet is in a mass hypnosis. If you've seen the movie The Matrix,
Oh, yes.
people, the planet is in this hypnotic state of seriousness, and you can do anything about humor or comedy falls in the area of entertainment. There's life, which is seriousness, and then there's humor and comedy, which is entertainment. And I say you need to reverse the two of them. You need to not take yourself so seriously, not take your thoughts so seriously, not take your survival so seriously, because everybody is surviving. Taking other people so seriously, taking our emotions so seriously. There's no compassion. We're isolated. The statistics of suicide and this as a therapist, the amount of antidepressant medication is like an asymptote from the use of medication. So it's all because we're in this matrix of seriousness, and we don't know how to get out of it. And this positively ridiculousness offers a four portals of power, I call it. One is by taking an attitude of altitude, that's comedy. An attitude of aptitude, that's using your God-given intelligence to really understand what's going on. And most people don't know how to think. Then there's an attitude of gratitude. We've all heard that, which is opening your heart, offering compassion and forgiveness. Then there's an attitude of fortitude, which is taking action. And between those four, you can spiral, you can leave the gravitational pull of the earth and put your life into a whole new orbit.
Well, that's great. I mean, as you know, I broadcast from my spaceship, so perhaps
Yes.
We can collaborate in some way. I can help take people into the orbit, and they can attend your workshop on the spaceship, and then come back.
That would be great. I would love it. Some people won't want to come back to the Earth.
Well, yeah. Well, there are some talk now about with Elon Musk. I mean, he's really on the forefront of space travel, and people signing up to go to Mars, and they're being told, listen, this is going to be a one-way trip. And he's saying, that people will probably die on Mars because just in terms of, it takes about a year to get there, and they'll be, setting up shop, trying to get everything set up so you can live there. But some people are happily signing up to go to Mars.
Just amazing.
Yeah. Anyway,
Gives you an idea
so
of how.
and
Yeah,
that's apparently where men are from, but it seems to be that you're saying in a way the opposite, because you're doing a parody, your book, about men being from penis, which obviously rhymes with Venus.
right.
So I don't know why I said it. It's only because you brought up the fact that when people go on your workshop, it's almost like they're going to leave and go into an orbit around Earth, and then when they come back, they'll be transformed and they'll be focusing more on entertainment first as a state of being, or the paradigm shift that you're talking about, a new philosophy, and work after, right? So you want to enjoy life as your first priority.
Right. And grow in the process. When you're light and when you see the humor, you're able to transcend your limitations. You're able to transcend the box that you've been living in. You're able to push the envelope. I'm using a few cliches here. But most people are in a box. Most people are in an envelope. And that's exactly right. So yeah.
So you're going to be actually, I believe you have a pilot project right now underway, and you're going to be offering this course online, I believe. How's that shaping up?
Well, it's actually shaping up terrific. We're going to be starting with a pilot course this Thursday night, and it's currently closed because we enough people to get a sample class, and at the same time we wanted to keep it intimate so people could give feedback. But it's going really well. It almost seems as if the universe is giving me a rubber stamp saying that there's a need for this and that people want it.
Yeah, it's nice when you get that kind of affirmation.
Yes. Yeah,
And
it really is.
so if, let's say, folks out there would like, are interested in your program, I'll be putting links at the bottom or at the end of this this broadcast, so not to worry. They can connect with you, and I have links also with the different books that you've written. And what about Harold, your pet Tyrannosaurus Rex? You were saying that he might make an appearance. Ah, there he is.
Well,
And he even
this is
has an
Harold.
envelope.
He has a message.
A message.
He has a message. He says, does anybody know a good dentist?
Put
So
that up
this is
again.
how
I don't know if people saw it. Go ahead.
Is it backwards? Are the words backwards?
That's
or are they
good.
Forward.
Go ahead.
All right.
Does anyone
Well,
know a good
Harold,
dentist? That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. I like that. This is part of the humor duo of Harold and Elliot. And we've got a few figures too, but I'll bring them up another time. I told you, my wife, my space wife, and my space cat were going to, or possibly, make an appearance, but they were on their way from Mars, and they ended up having to turn back. You know why?
Why?
Too many of these stupid satellites that Elon Musk is shooting up there with his SpaceX program. You know, all these stupid satellites. So they're all out there, and they're all around Earth. So they're coming to Earth, and it screwed up their whole navigational system. So they had to turn around and go back to Mars. It takes a good day to get back, a good year, Of course, they have a bit more advanced technology, but still.
Yeah.
What do you make of all this? These satellites that they're so omnipresent that people who are trying to take photos, professional photographers, of different constellation and stars and moon and whatever have these sparkling satellite dishes, you know, in their composition. They have to somehow, you know, Photoshop them out. But that's the complexion now of space.
Yeah.
Filled with all these,
yeah. Again, it's that old ego advantage. They can spy from the satellites.
Yeah.
They can broadcast. They can spy while they're broadcasting.
That's right.
They can use cameras.
I try to maintain my independence up here in my spaceship, but it's tough. There's a lot of competition out there now, and from all the different countries, the main players, China, Russia, of course, United States, and it's overwhelming sometimes. But speaking of today's times, I mean, when you first started out as doing stand-up comedy, and now you're writing, or you were always writing, but going to today's particular situation with a lot of younger people basically not having a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that there seems to be a resistance to laughing at things that are supposed to be funny, and somehow instead of laughing, they're actually insulted. They can't find the humor in things.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Everything is taken. Yeah. It's not a good sign. I'm not a happy camper about that. People take everything personally. They're attacking. Attacking seems to be the only emotion. Making wrong, criticizing, judging, being entitled, being self-righteous, all those words. I don't really know what to make of it. It's the very opposite of what I'm doing with the course, which is to go the other way. When you're judging, criticizing, condemning, and etc., name calling, you're contracting, and you're separating yourself from them. You know, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm good, you're bad. I'm politically correct. You're politically incorrect. You contract, and in fact, you actually damage your health. You not only are you filled with stress and anxiety, but your heart also contracts, and that's not the nature of the human being. You don't see that in 3-year-old children. You know, they're open. When I take a walk, and before COVID happened, there would be these children in preschool. They'd all wait, and as I was walking by, they'd be waving to me, hi, 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 hi. You know, there was just this, just innocence and joy. You know, where these days? Where's the innocence? Where's the joy?
So you are offering your course to help people who find that the daily grind of life is getting to be too much, and they need a way to change their life so they can find some kind of joy. Is that right?
Right. That is right. Here's the irony, Peter. When you're light, you're more productive. When you're light, you're clearer. When you're light, you're more intelligent, you're more efficient, you don't burn out, you're having fun at what you do, you're enjoying your work. And the thing is, the very survival effort that produced the tension is actually inferior to a joyful response of lightness, where you get more done. Your intentions are more on target. likely to get caught in a box or an envelope. Your outlook is broader, so you think bigger. So it's the irony. I have these ironies, they're opposites of life. The more fun you're having, the more money you're making. You know, the more productive you're being, and the more you're helping people, because that's also a very big part of this. We naturally want to help people, and if you look at the news, it's just the opposite. It's almost like people want to separate themselves from others, but we're naturally connected.
Right, and I wonder if you have some words of advice to people that cling to conspiracy theories.
It's brutal, really brutal. I don't know what to say. Of course, I'm supposed to be light, and I shouldn't be saying words like brutal, but I certainly won't mention any names, but someone who I had a lot of respect for, who was a healer, all of a sudden started telling about people in Hollywood chopping up little babies so that they could drink the blood and look younger. And I go, oh my God, you know, and it's our inability to think clearly, to separate the truth from fiction. People can't tell the difference between truth and fiction. They can't tell. If you talk louder and stronger, people are more likely to believe you. And the very people who talk loud and strong are usually the people who are creating the falsehoods. So people need, you know, people aren't thinking, people are closing their heart. Anyway, you get the idea.
Well, yes, I was just reading an article recently about the fact that they are finding higher concentrations of not Al-Anon, but QAnon, conspiracy theory literature and information and posts in wellness. There's a lot of people that seem to are in the wellness business who are endorsing this stuff of QAnon. Can you, I mean, you know why? They say the reason is that there's a lot of anti-vaxxers who are in the wellness arena. Of course, those are the people who are against vaccinations. And of course, the conspiracy theories have had a field day with Bill Gates and others making a connection to them and the WHO, World Health Organization, that are deliberately getting people sick with COVID-19 so they can control them with vaccines that have microchips. So you've got, you know, a whole huge segment of the population, I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of 40%, who believe this nonsense. They really do believe it. They think that all of these things are true. And like you said before, they can't separate truth from fiction. And the reason, I think, is because there's been a whole anti-intellectual movement going now for many, many years. And they are so much against people with an education, they're now calling us indoctrinated. We've been indoctrinated by the system, so we've been brainwashed, in other words. They are the ones who are awakened. They're awakened.
That's right.
This is what they're saying. So the Facebook is full of these groups, social media full of these groups and all of this. And they say it's because they did their research. This just makes me laugh. The first time I heard that, of course, being a graduate degree in university, having done studies and real research, okay?
Right.
It's you know, I know what real research is. So when I get person who's never been to university and says they're doing their research, I gotta laugh.
Right.
Which basically
Yeah.
consists of reading some kind of regurgitated diatribe that's been repeated over and over and over again, and they think that's it's truth because
Right.
someone wrote something and an opinion, an op-ed, and then it was repeated over and over again in different websites and Facebook groups. So
Yeah.
that's the truth. Suddenly becomes
Yes.
truth. And
Yes.
it's really, like you say, pretty chaotic
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So if you want to discern between truth and reality, what do you think is the best way to go about that? Maybe you have some.
Well, you have to stay in the question. You have to stay in the I don't know. So I mean, if you're a real researcher, you say, well, could be true, could not be true. And then you go to both sides. See, the people who are saying they've done their research means they've gone deeply into one media source. And so like you said, they've gotten 10 or 20 different permutations and combinations of the same
Opinion or op-ed.
opinion. You know, this, and they consider that research. I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, but the irony is, if someone were actually open-minded enough to say, well, let's see if it's true, let's see if it's not true, and they went to both sides or three sides or five sides of the argument, they would see a completely different angle that also was consistent, that, you know, inherently logical and inherently consistent, that contradicted the other side. So you really can't call yourself a researcher unless you're looking at all sides of the picture. Very few people will do that. They want to find, there's a phrase, rather than I'll believe it when I see it. Wait a minute, let me see if I get this right. They first believe it first, and then they see it, rather than first seeing it and then deciding if they want to believe it.
Yeah.
So their opinion comes first, and then their proof. Then they find all the evidence that'll justify the opinion, which they embraced irrationally.
It's often referred to as circular reasoning or circular logic, when you basically start off with your belief and you basically just endorse only those articles or whatever you've written or we've looked at that affirm your belief, and you discard everything else.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what's happening on a grand scale. I mean, we're talking of
And I would add, Peter, that
millions of people, even in Canada too. And I thought, you know, Canada had a little bit more sense, but no, there's a big chunk of people in Canada who also believe that Bill Gates is putting microchips in the vaccine. And that
it's
it
crazy.
was, the COVID-19 was created in a laboratory. So,
well, as
you know, I don't know.
As a therapist, I think you could find more reason through the fact that they feel a victim of life, and you could probably find psychological reasons why they believe those things, as opposed to any kind of proof or research. This is we're really talking realm of psychology. We're not talking a realm of medicine or sociology.
Well, that's the thing that, as I was mentioning earlier, they have in common, the wellness groups and the conspiracy QAnon group. they have in common the idea that they are victims, and they are very concerned about their children being abused
Right.
by some big corporate entity,
Right.
big pharma, Bill Gates, George Soros. Of course, we know that Hillary Clinton is behind the pedophilia ring, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh boy. So anyway, so what you're offering, let's get back to your, we could go on and on discussing this, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
nice to
We
find
could.
somebody who, it's actually refreshing to find somebody like yourself who is aware of what's, what's really rational, what makes sense and what doesn't.
Right.
Because there's so many people out there that seem to be taken so easily for a ride.
Yes, very easily. I was going to add that there are people who know what they're doing in power, who
Mhm.
who take the masses as suckers.
Mm.
And you've heard that word in the news, but
Mhm.
they actually think that the masses are suckers, and they play up to it.
Yeah.
They cultivate these myths. They probably sit around over wine and cheese and brainstorm
Mhm.
absurd things that they can try to get people to believe. I'm serious. Yeah. So you had a question there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what
So
advice do you have to give people to help them to separate fact from reality, or fact from
yeah,
fantasy, or fact from whatever,
yeah,
conspiracy theory?
sure. Well, the first thing I would say is don't take your thoughts seriously. The mind is actually a structure for protecting us. So it's like you don't want to consult the wall of a fort on what to do with your life. The mind is a protection mechanism. So we have thoughts. No one's going to argue about that. And the thoughts that the fact that they're there, yes, they're real, but the thoughts are a reaction. They're not proactive. So my advice is you think for yourself, and you you decide what's your joy. Think clearly, and like you were saying, get the facts. You start taking action on those things that are going to make you happy, and don't them on the world, the politics, the Bill Gateses, etc. So I have a saying. Don't entertain your thoughts. Let your thoughts entertain you. See your
Mhm.
thoughts as humorous.
Mhm.
There's a difference between functional thinking, which, Elon Musk is doing functional thinking. If you can send a SpaceX to a space station and bring it back where even the supporting boosters just land perfectly on a site, it's extraordinary to watch.
Mhm.
That's functional thinking. That's thinking at its best. But most of our thinking is dysfunctional. So engage in the 4 functions of clear thinking, lightness, joy, and humor, love, gratitude, compassion, forgiveness for others, and then be proactive and pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get going and create the life that you really deserve, rather than blaming everything on society. I'll just give me another 10 seconds. A great teacher by the name of Michael Beckwith came up with 4 levels of the human being. These are kind of almost reminiscent of Carl Rogers' hierarchy. But the first level is victim, and most people are a victim, and they blame other people. The next level, though, is manifester. So they're taking they're getting up, they're getting out, they're get going, and they're making things happen. But sometimes, and too often, we manifest as a compensation. We think we're powerless, so we manifest to try to get power, etc. It's the third level, which is the secret. And that's the level of being a channeler, but it's a channeler for your spirit, channeler for who you really are. And this is not airy-fairy, it's not New Age mumbo-jumbo. It's the same you that you were when you were a child. And so that you want to let come through. You want to be a channel for that inner child that you really are. And the fourth level is almost mystical. It's where you're actually feeling oneness with the universe. But let's get to be a manifester and a channeler of joy rather than a victim.
I love that. That's really great. And that certainly is, I think, the goal. It should be the goal for anyone who wants to get any kind of measure of happiness and satisfaction in their life, is to don't forget your inner child, to reconnect, because that's what we were given at birth. And if we can somehow come closer to who we really are, then that should guide us towards a much more satisfying and joyful life. That's wonderful. And I think on that note, I want to thank you, Elliot Sullivan, for your time today. You've been very wonderful in terms of not just talking about your various projects, but also in providing some wise tidbits of advice for people who are looking to find some kind of joy in all the chaos that we find ourselves in today. And just a note, I seek, just for anyone wanting to know, you have the name Sivam on your screen.
Oh,
what
you
is
know
that?
what? That's so funny. I didn't realize that. That's the name given to me by this Indian master. And Shiva, it's pronounced Shivam. It's as if it was an S-H-I-V-A-M.
Okay.
And Shivam is the supreme, it's the supreme principle. It doesn't mean that I think I'm, hot stuff. It just means to remember the higher principles of things. That's really funny. I didn't even realize that. But it's,
yeah, so that's your Indian name that was given to you by your the master in India.
right.
And wonderful. So, I mean, that's great to know. We get special names, and if you relate to it, why not? I wonder if we can have Harold to say his anything he'd like to say before we leave. Harold?
Yeah. Well, he would. He's been enjoying the conversation, and he's thinking of going off any medication that he was on previously, because he thinks that he can be more comfortable in his own scales, his own reptilian scales,
Okay.
based on our conversation. So he really he does thank you for this opportunity. Sometimes he gets lonely, so he likes getting out and showing, being among people.
Well, welcome anytime you can, we get together, because as you know, Elliot and I, we have meetings together. We're discussing. So if Harold wants to join in, by all means, and I have a few friends too who might want to join as well. Okay, so
Well,
Harold, you won't be so lonely. Okay, great.
Harold loves to make friends.
Great.
He promises not to eat any of your friends. Don't worry.
All right,
Harold's become a vegetarian, so don't worry.
Oh, that's good. I'm going to pass that on, because I think they'd like to know.
He's a vegan.
A vegan?
He's a vegan
Okay.
dinosaur.
Good.
Vegan, yeah.
Vegan dinosaur. Wow. Okay.
He's a
yeah,
dying
so
breed. A dying breed.
he's what?
He's a dying breed. He's a dying breed. Someone like him is going to be extinct to find a vegan dinosaur.
Yes, that's true. And I was mentioning, I was just watching a rerun of Jurassic Park when I read your email to me when you said you're going to bring Harold along, and great. So
Yeah.
for sure we'll probably meet again. We're going to have other shows coming up, and thank you again, Elliot. I'm just going to close with a reminder of who I am. I'm Peter Desmond Kelly, host of Peter the Healer, Your Celestial Broadcaster, the place for great interviews where I ask the questions nobody else does. And if you liked this episode, I would love to invite you, and I wish you will, please click on the like button and subscribe, and you will be up to date with all the shows that are coming up. And I wish all of you a great day and happy landing.